Welcome to the 700 Club, a political showdown in Michigan. Lawmakers say the governor has gone too far with her stay-at-home order, and now this fight is going to court.
Protesters took to the streets again Thursday with signs saying, "Shut down the lockdown," and "No work, no freedom." Jennifer Wishon brings us the story.
USA! USA!
Despite protests by hundreds of Michiganders at the state capitol Thursday, and efforts by the Republican-controlled House and Senate to stop her, Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed 3 new executive orders Thursday, extending the state's emergency and disaster declarations through the end of May, saying scientific data shows the state isn't out of the woods yet.
Can't put a hard and fast timeline because a lot of this depends on human behavior and our ability to observe these best practices.
Some residents see it as government overreach and a power grab.
I've had enough of being told what I can and cannot do. I've had enough of worrying about bills and making money.
No, especially a politician, has the right to devalue an individual by labeling them non-essential.
There were tense moments. State Senator Dana Polhanke tweeting, "Directly above me, men with rifles yelling at us. Some of my colleagues who own bulletproof vests are wearing them." Michigan has been hit hard, registering more than 40,000 cases, suffering nearly 3,700 deaths. But not everyone buys the numbers.
I do think that we have a virus, but I do think that the numbers are inflated. I think it's all political.
Republicans who control the legislature think the governor is overstepping her authority.
At this point in the COVID crisis, what can the governor accomplish alone that she can't do together with the leadership of the House and the Senate?
The State House passed a resolution authorizing the House Speaker to seek legal action against the governor for her conduct during the pandemic. She's facing a number of lawsuits, including one by 5 businesses arguing her pandemic-related executive orders have shuttered civil society, placed 10 million people under house arrest, and taking jobs away from nearly 1.2 million people, all without due process of law.
My husband's an electrician, and he cannot go back to work supposedly until May 7th, as long as that goes through, but he can go out on a golf course as of today. I don't think it's fair to start making those provisions.
It is very important that we as Americans stand up for our Constitution and for our civil liberties, because as we know, government continues to take and take.
Governor Whitmer says she hopes to reopen certain sectors of the economy in the days ahead. But for now, she faces a political battle over government power. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Well, I think this is going to be the first in a whole series of actions against governors as this lockdown continues on, and if they try to extend the lockdown, Whitmer got into trouble because I think the specificity and the sort of odd differences that it was okay to be in a canoe, but you couldn't be in a motorboat. I mean, it was, sort of just bizarre on the face of it. Why the difference, and why was one thing acceptable and another not? But people have a good point. If you can go out and golf, why can't you go work as an electrician? What is the difference here? And churches have a point that if you can go to a drive-in window at a fast food restaurant, why can't you go into a drive-in church? So this is just the first. I think we're going to see a whole series of these play out over the next few weeks. And if these lockdowns continue, we'll see more and more protests. In other news, Joe Biden has finally broken his silence over a sexual allegation. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right. The Vice President Gordon flatly denied that he sexually assaulted a former staffer named Tara Reid. Reid claims Biden pushed her up against a wall and put his hand up her skirt when he was a senator back in 1993. The allegation has gained traction in recent days after others supported Reid's account, including her brother, saying she previously told them about it. After several leading Democrats said Biden should respond, he appeared today on MSNBC's Morning Joe program.
No, it is not true. I'm saying unequivocally, it never happened. And it didn't. It never happened. I don't remember any type of complaint she may have made. It was 27 years ago, and I don't remember, nor does anyone else that I'm aware of. And the fact is that I don't remember. I don't remember any complaint ever having been made. They said.
Biden went on to say that women who come forward with allegations should be listened to, but he also said those claims should be investigated. Although he was interviewed multiple times by major media organizations, Biden was never asked about the allegation until today. Conservatives repeatedly complained that the media had treated the Biden allegation far differently than those against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh when he was nominated for the high court back in 2018. Well, the Justice Department is standing with people of faith and warning state officials whose actions may have infringed on constitutional rights. During social distancing lockdowns, we've seen pastors arrested, worshipers fined, and religious funerals shut down. All of that comes as this Sunday, many congregations are planning to take part in what's being called Reopen Church Sunday, with believers starting to meet again just before the National Day of Prayer Week begins. Caitlin Burke brings us that story.
In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, restrictions on church services and other gatherings have become a top religious freedom issue. This has led to lawsuits against a handful of states, questioning whether protecting public health overrules the constitutional rights of Americans.
If I don't exercise my right, I fear that I will lose my right. And my right to religion is one that's been fought for centuries.
I'm just trying to set rules that save people's lives.
Kentucky joins 7 other states slapped with lawsuits, accused of going too far in cracking down on religious liberty. Alliance Defending Freedom is representing Mississippi churchgoers, suing local government officials after being fined $500 each for attending a drive-in church service.
It's just funny how they pick and choose winners and losers, who can stay open. Walmart's always packed. The Home Depot, Lowe's is always packed. Grocery stores are always packed. But for some reason, suddenly it's dangerous if you go to church.
Tuesday in New York City, crowds packed public parks to watch a flyover tribute by the Thunderbirds and Blue Angels, the city doing nothing to call people out for violating social distancing orders. Later that night, however, the mayor issued a strong warning to Orthodox Jews gathered in Brooklyn for the funeral of a local rabbi. Mayor Bill de Blasio tweeting out, quote, "My message to the Jewish community and all communities is this simple. The time for warnings has passed. I've instructed the NYPD to proceed immediately to summons or even arrest those who gather in large groups." The Justice Department now stepping in an effort to hold state and local governments accountable. In a memo, Attorney General William Barr urged the nation's federal prosecutors to be on the lookout for state and local coronavirus-related restrictions that could be unconstitutional.
As many churches this weekend take part in what's being called Reopen Church Sunday, groups like the Family Research Council are urging people to fellowship safely, using appropriate sanitation practices and adhering to social distancing guidelines. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Thank you, Caitlin. Turning overseas to Israel, where its fight against COVID-19 has just received a major shot in the arm from a group called Our Crowd, one of Israel's leading investment organizations. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, this could be a major step forward in finding a vaccine for the world.
2 months ago, as COVID-19 began taking its grip on the world, CBN News reported on the research and development of a vaccine by the Migdal Research Institute.
We've reached a winning formula for vaccination of poultry, which worked very, very nicely.
The Institute's work toward that poultry vaccine started in 2016, which gave Migdal a 4-year head start against this sickness because it's similar to the human virus.
So we're now backing this project, and we're just beyond ourselves in terms of hope and optimism that this kind of project coming out of Israel's Galilee can bring potentially very, very good news to the world.
Jonathan Medved, founder of Our Crowd, held their annual summit just before the pandemic. He chose to fund this research under a new company called Migvax. He says its formula brings a number of advantages.
This is not their first rodeo. They've been working on a variety of coronavirus-related vaccines in this area now for some time. But on top of that, this is an oral vaccine, which is pretty much unique in terms of the other candidates that are out there. It doesn't require a shot. It'll work in hot climates in parts of Africa, because we need a vaccine for everybody.
Medved says his organization has been on a mission since the pandemic began. He says it's all part of Israel's biblical calling.
We're all here for a purpose, and the purpose of Israel renewed, Israel rebuilt, Israel established not just as a strong member of the family of nations, is that we are supposed to do this stuff. Okay, we are supposed to be out there working on cures for cancer and to feed the world and to cure and prevent the coronavirus. This is our calling, and our ability at our crowd to help support these brave entrepreneurs and to link them to supporters and investors around the world, it doesn't get better than that.
Medved hopes other investors will join the effort.
What's great about it is it's democratic, so that any of your viewers who meet the criteria of accredited investors worldwide can now join together with us and fund this important development and hopefully profit from the results.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Hopeful and promising news. Gordon?
Very hopeful, very promising. At the same time, yeah, be wary of anyone who claims they have a cure for it. We've got to be very cautious looking forward, and particularly for vaccines, just the development timeline. This particular one seems to have some promise, but when you consider it's only been tested in bird populations, well, it's got a long way to go before it becomes effective for you and me.